Question 1. Operational review demonstrates that an applicant for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania has a prior conviction for a violent offense and has recently been involved in a public disturbance incident. What is the most appropriate course of action for the licensing authority? Option A. Issue the permit based on the applicant's assurance that the weapon will be used solely for sport shooting and that they have no intention of misusing it. Option B. Grant the permit, relying primarily on a letter of recommendation from a neighbor who attests to the applicant's good character, despite the documented history. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's criminal record and the details of the public disturbance incident, assessing them against the specific disqualifying criteria outlined in the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition. Option D. Postpone the decision indefinitely pending further, unspecified investigations, without providing a timeline or clear rationale to the applicant. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's criminal record and the details of the public disturbance incident, assessing them against the specific disqualifying criteria outlined in the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the strict legal requirements for obtaining and maintaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania with the ethical obligation to ensure public safety and responsible firearm ownership. The applicant's history presents a significant risk factor that must be carefully evaluated against the provisions of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition. A thorough understanding of the permit application process, including the grounds for refusal, is paramount. The best approach involves a meticulous review of the applicant's criminal record and any documented instances of aggressive behavior, directly comparing these against the criteria for permit eligibility as stipulated by the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition. This law outlines specific disqualifying factors, such as convictions for certain offenses or evidence of behavior that poses a risk to public safety. By adhering strictly to these legal provisions, the authorities can make an informed decision that upholds both the rights of the applicant and the safety of the community. This process ensures that the decision is grounded in objective legal standards, minimizing the potential for arbitrary judgment. An approach that focuses solely on the applicant's stated intention to use the weapon for sport, without a comprehensive background check, is professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the legal mandate to assess the applicant's overall suitability and potential risk. It fails to consider that stated intentions do not negate past behaviors or legal prohibitions. Another professionally unacceptable approach would be to grant the permit based on a single character reference, disregarding the applicant's documented history of aggressive behavior and any potential criminal convictions. This approach prioritizes subjective testimonials over objective legal requirements and risk assessment, thereby compromising public safety and violating the spirit and letter of the law. Finally, delaying the decision indefinitely without a clear legal basis or a structured process for further investigation is also unacceptable. Such inaction can lead to legal challenges and fails to provide a timely and fair resolution for the applicant, while also leaving potential public safety concerns unaddressed. Professionals in this field should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the relevant Lithuanian legislation. This framework should include a systematic review of all submitted documentation, a thorough background investigation, and a direct comparison of findings against the legal criteria for permit issuance or refusal. Ethical considerations, particularly the duty to protect public safety, must be integrated into every step of the process. When faced with ambiguous information or borderline cases, seeking clarification from legal counsel or senior officers specializing in firearms regulation is a crucial part of responsible decision-making. Question 2. The monitoring system demonstrates a discrepancy between the recorded status of a weapon permit and the information available in the official Lithuanian registry. What is the most appropriate course of action for the responsible party? Option A. Attempt to manually correct the discrepancy in the monitoring system based on the available information. Option B. Immediately verify the discrepancy against the official Lithuanian weapon permit registry. If confirmed, formally report the anomaly to the relevant Lithuanian authorities. Option C. Assume the monitoring system has a technical error and disregard the discrepancy. Option D. Directly contact the permit holder to inquire about the discrepancy without consulting official records or authorities. The correct answer is B. Immediately verify the discrepancy against the official Lithuanian weapon permit registry, and if confirmed, formally report the anomaly to the relevant Lithuanian authorities. Explanation: the monitoring system demonstrates a potential lapse in adherence to Lithuanian regulations concerning the permit to keep and carry a weapon. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires immediate and accurate assessment of a situation that could have significant legal and safety implications. The responsible party must balance the need for prompt action with the requirement for thorough investigation and adherence to established procedures. The best approach involves a systematic and documented process of verification and reporting. This entails immediately cross-referencing the observed information with the official registry of weapon permits maintained by the relevant Lithuanian authorities. If a discrepancy is identified, the next crucial step is to formally report the anomaly to the issuing authority or the designated law enforcement agency responsible for weapon permit oversight in Lithuania. This ensures that any potential violations are investigated through the proper channels, maintaining the integrity of the permit system and public safety. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the principles of due diligence and regulatory compliance mandated by Lithuanian law for individuals and entities involved in weapon ownership and permit management. It prioritizes accurate record keeping and official reporting mechanisms. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the discrepancy without further investigation, assuming a system error. This fails to acknowledge the potential for a genuine violation of Lithuanian weapon permit laws, which could result in unauthorized possession of a firearm and pose a significant public safety risk. Such inaction would be a dereliction of duty and could have severe legal consequences. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the individual or entity without first consulting the official registry or reporting to the authorities. While seemingly proactive, this bypasses established investigative procedures and could lead to misinterpretations, escalation of the situation, or interference with an official investigation. It also fails to provide the necessary documentation and evidence required by Lithuanian law for enforcement actions. A further incorrect approach would be to attempt to rectify the discrepancy by unilaterally updating the registry or making assumptions about the permit's validity without official authorization. This constitutes unauthorized alteration of official records and undermines the authority of the Lithuanian permit-issuing bodies, potentially leading to further legal complications. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to legal mandates, established protocols, and ethical responsibilities. This involves 1. Information gathering and verification. Always start by confirming the accuracy of the information through official channels. 2. Regulatory compliance. Ensure all actions taken are in strict accordance with the specific laws and regulations of Lithuania pertaining to weapon permits. 3. Reporting and documentation. Maintain meticulous records of all observations, verifications, and communications with authorities. 4. Escalation and collaboration. Engage with the appropriate regulatory or law enforcement bodies for investigation and resolution. Question 3. System analysis indicates that an applicant has submitted a request for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania, asserting their good character and a desire for personal protection. What is the most appropriate course of action for the issuing authority to ensure compliance with Lithuanian law and public safety? Option A. Issue the permit based on the applicant's personal assurances of responsible behavior and their stated need for self-defense, assuming they are trustworthy. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of all submitted documentation against the requirements of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, including verifying the applicant's age, fitness, criminal record, and the legitimacy of their stated purpose, and perform any legally mandated background checks. Option C. Deny the permit immediately due to a subjective feeling that the applicant might not be entirely suitable, without specific legal grounds or evidence. Option D. Expedite the permit issuance process by bypassing some background checks to reduce administrative workload, trusting the applicant's provided information. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of all submitted documentation against the requirements of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, including verifying the applicant's age, fitness, criminal record, and the legitimacy of their stated purpose, and perform any legally mandated background checks. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the applicant's right to pursue a lawful activity with the state's paramount responsibility to public safety. The issuing authority must meticulously assess the applicant's suitability, ensuring compliance with all legal requirements without succumbing to undue pressure or making assumptions. The challenge lies in the objective application of the law to a potentially sensitive personal matter. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's submitted documentation against the specific requirements outlined in the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control. This includes verifying the applicant's age, mental and physical fitness, absence of criminal convictions or other disqualifying factors as stipulated by law, and ensuring the stated purpose for possessing and carrying a weapon is legitimate and aligns with legal provisions. The authority must then conduct any legally mandated interviews or background checks to confirm the information provided. This approach is correct because it adheres strictly to the procedural and substantive requirements of Lithuanian law, ensuring that the decision is based on verifiable facts and legal criteria, thereby upholding public safety and the integrity of the permitting process. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to grant the permit based solely on the applicant's assurance of responsible behavior and their stated desire for self-defense, without independently verifying their qualifications or conducting the legally required checks. This fails to meet the statutory obligations under the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, which mandates specific criteria and verification processes. Relying on personal assurances bypasses crucial safety checks and exposes the public to potential risks, violating the core principle of responsible arms control. Another incorrect approach would be to deny the permit summarily due to a vague concern about the applicant's perceived personality, without any concrete evidence or legal basis for such a decision. This constitutes an arbitrary application of the law and infringes upon the applicant's rights if they otherwise meet all legal requirements. Decisions must be grounded in specific legal disqualifications or demonstrable risks, not subjective impressions. A further incorrect approach would be to expedite the process and issue the permit without completing all mandatory background checks or verifying the authenticity of submitted documents, perhaps due to administrative pressure or a desire to clear backlogs. This undermines the entire purpose of the permitting system, which is designed to prevent unauthorized individuals from acquiring weapons. It directly contravenes the due diligence required by Lithuanian law and creates a significant public safety hazard. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role must adopt a systematic, evidence-based decision-making process. This involves 1. Clearly identifying all applicable legal requirements and procedural steps. 2. Gathering and meticulously verifying all necessary documentation and information from the applicant. 3. Conducting all legally mandated checks and assessments objectively. 4. Making a decision strictly based on whether the applicant meets all legal criteria and poses no undue risk to public safety. 5. Documenting the entire process and the rationale for the final decision. This structured approach ensures fairness, legality, and the protection of public interest. Question 4. Implementation of the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania requires individuals seeking a permit to keep and carry a weapon to demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of the application process and their responsibilities. Considering the stakeholder perspective of the applicant, what is the most effective and legally compliant approach to securing such a permit? Option A. Submit an application with a general statement of intent to own a firearm, assuming that personal references will suffice to validate the need. Option B. Provide a medical certificate from a general practitioner without specific endorsement for firearm ownership and a vague explanation of self-defense as the sole reason. Option C. Rely on informal advice from acquaintances who have previously obtained permits, bypassing the formal application process to expedite the acquisition. Option D. Diligently gather all required documentation, including medical fitness certificates and proof of firearms training, and clearly articulate a legally recognized justification for the permit, submitting the application through official channels. The correct answer is D. Diligently gather all required documentation, including medical fitness certificates and proof of firearms training, and clearly articulate a legally recognized justification for the permit, submitting the application through official channels. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to navigate the specific procedural requirements for obtaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania, while also demonstrating a clear understanding of the underlying legal and ethical responsibilities associated with firearm ownership. The challenge lies in accurately identifying and presenting the necessary documentation and information to the relevant authorities, ensuring full compliance with the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania. Misinterpreting or omitting crucial steps can lead to permit denial, legal repercussions, and a failure to uphold public safety. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough and proactive engagement with the official application process as outlined by the Lithuanian authorities. This means meticulously gathering all required documents, including proof of identity, medical certificates confirming fitness to handle a weapon, a certificate of no criminal record, and evidence of completed firearms training. Furthermore, it necessitates understanding and articulating the specific reasons for requiring the permit, as stipulated by law, and ensuring all information provided is accurate and verifiable. This approach directly aligns with the requirements of the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, which mandates a comprehensive assessment of an applicant's suitability and legitimate need for a weapon. Adhering strictly to these established procedures demonstrates responsibility and respect for the legal framework governing firearms. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves submitting an incomplete application with missing documentation, such as a valid medical certificate or proof of firearms training. This fails to meet the explicit requirements of the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, which mandates these documents for assessing an applicant's physical and mental fitness, as well as their competence in handling firearms. Such an omission would likely result in the application being rejected due to noncompliance. Another incorrect approach is to provide vague or unsubstantiated reasons for needing to keep and carry a weapon, without referencing specific legal grounds or demonstrating a genuine and demonstrable need as recognized by Lithuanian law. The law on weapons and ammunition requires a clear justification for the permit, and a lack of specificity or a failure to align with legally recognized purposes would be a significant regulatory failure. A further incorrect approach is to rely on informal channels or personal recommendations instead of following the prescribed official application procedures. The law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania clearly defines the formal process for obtaining a permit, and bypassing these established channels constitutes a direct violation of the regulatory framework, undermining the integrity of the permitting system and potentially leading to the illegal acquisition of a firearm. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should adopt a systematic and compliant approach. This involves first identifying the specific legal requirements for the permit in Lithuania by consulting official government resources or legal counsel specializing in firearms law. Second, they must meticulously prepare all necessary documentation, ensuring its accuracy and validity. Third, they should clearly articulate their reasons for the permit application, aligning them with the provisions of the law on weapons and ammunition. Finally, they must submit the application through the designated official channels and be prepared to provide any further information or clarification requested by the authorities. This structured process ensures adherence to legal obligations and promotes responsible firearm ownership. Question 5. To address the challenge of ensuring lawful firearm transfers in Lithuania, a licensed firearms dealer is presented with a customer who has a permit to keep and carry a weapon. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the dealer to take to comply with the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control? Option A. Thoroughly verify the authenticity and validity of the customer's permit to keep and carry a weapon, ensuring it is current and appropriate for the firearm being purchased, and meticulously document the entire transaction as required by Lithuanian law. Option B. Inform the customer that the permit appears valid and proceed with the sale, noting in the records that the permit was presented but not independently verified. Option C. Complete the sale immediately if the permit is not expired, without verifying its specific type or cross-referencing it with the firearm being sold, and record only the customer's name and the firearm's make. Option D. Accept the customer's permit at face value, assuming it is valid, and proceed with the sale after a brief visual inspection. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly verify the authenticity and validity of the customer's permit to keep and carry a weapon, ensuring it is current and appropriate for the firearm being purchased, and meticulously document the entire transaction as required by Lithuanian law. Explanation: the scenario presents a professional challenge for a firearms dealer in Lithuania concerning the transfer of a firearm to a customer who has presented a valid permit to keep and carry a weapon. The challenge lies in ensuring strict adherence to the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, specifically regarding the verification of the permit's validity and the proper documentation of the transaction. Failure to comply can lead to severe legal penalties, including fines and revocation of the dealer's license, as well as contributing to the illicit circulation of firearms. The correct approach involves meticulously verifying the authenticity and validity of the customer's permit to keep and carry a weapon issued by the Lithuanian authorities. This includes checking the expiry date, ensuring it corresponds to the type of firearm being purchased, and confirming the customer's identity against the permit. Furthermore, the dealer must accurately record all details of the transaction in accordance with the requirements of the law on weapons and ammunition control, including the customer's personal information, the firearm's serial number, and the permit details. This thorough verification and documentation process is mandated by Article 16 of the Law on Weapons and Ammunition Control, which outlines the conditions for the sale and transfer of weapons and ammunition, emphasizing the necessity of a valid permit and proper record keeping. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the customer's verbal assurance of permit validity, without independent verification. This bypasses the legal requirement for due diligence and exposes the dealer to significant risk. Another incorrect approach is to accept an expired permit, as the law clearly states that a valid permit is a prerequisite for any legal transfer. Furthermore, failing to document the transaction comprehensively, omitting crucial details such as the firearm's serial number or the permit number, constitutes a violation of the record-keeping obligations stipulated in the law, hindering potential investigations and undermining regulatory oversight. Professionals in this situation should employ a systematic decision-making process. This involves first understanding the specific legal requirements of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control pertaining to firearm sales. Second, they must implement a robust internal procedure for verifying all documentation presented by customers. Third, they should maintain meticulous and accurate records of all transactions. Finally, in cases of doubt or ambiguity, seeking clarification from the relevant Lithuanian authorities responsible for firearms control is paramount to ensure compliance and uphold professional integrity. Question 6. The review process indicates that an applicant for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania has provided documentation that appears complete on its face, including a statement of no recent criminal convictions. However, a preliminary check suggests a past, minor infraction that is not explicitly listed as a disqualifying offense in the law on weapons and ammunition control. What is the most appropriate course of action for the reviewing authority? Option A. Grant the permit immediately, relying on the applicant's statement of no recent criminal convictions and assuming the minor infraction is irrelevant. Option B. Conduct a thorough verification of all submitted documents, including independent background checks and a review of the applicant's psychological and physical fitness, to ensure full compliance with the law on weapons and ammunition control of Lithuania before making a decision. Option C. Forward the application to a higher authority for an opinion, without conducting any further independent verification or assessment. Option D. Deny the permit based on the existence of any past infraction, regardless of its nature or whether it is a disqualifying offense under Lithuanian law. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough verification of all submitted documents, including independent background checks and a review of the applicant's psychological and physical fitness, to ensure full compliance with the law on weapons and ammunition control of Lithuania before making a decision. Explanation: the review process indicates a potential lapse in diligence concerning the application for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of the Lithuanian legal framework governing firearms, specifically the law on weapons and ammunition control, and the associated administrative procedures. The applicant's history, while not immediately disqualifying, necessitates careful scrutiny to ensure compliance with public safety and responsible ownership principles. A thorough review must balance the applicant's rights with the state's obligation to prevent misuse of firearms. The best professional approach involves a comprehensive verification of all submitted documentation and a thorough background check, including consultation with relevant Lithuanian authorities as stipulated by law. This includes verifying the applicant's stated reasons for seeking the permit, confirming their psychological and physical fitness, and ensuring they have completed any mandatory training. This approach is correct because it directly adheres to the principles of due diligence and the legal requirements for obtaining a permit in Lithuania, prioritizing public safety and lawful firearm possession. It ensures that all statutory obligations are met before any decision is made, thereby upholding the integrity of the permitting process. An incorrect approach would be to grant the permit based solely on the applicant's assertion of a clean criminal record, without independently verifying this information or assessing their suitability through mandated checks. This fails to meet the legal standard of care and could inadvertently permit a weapon to an individual who may pose a risk, violating the core purpose of the firearms control legislation. Another incorrect approach would be to deny the permit outright due to the applicant's past association with a minor infraction, even if that infraction is not a disqualifying offense under Lithuanian law. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the specific disqualifying criteria outlined in the law on weapons and ammunition control, and constitutes an arbitrary denial of a legal right, failing to apply the law fairly and impartially. Professionals should employ a systematic decision-making process that begins with a complete understanding of the relevant Lithuanian legislation. This involves meticulously reviewing each component of the application against the statutory requirements, conducting all mandated background checks and verifications, and documenting the entire process. If any ambiguities or potential concerns arise, further investigation or consultation with legal experts specializing in Lithuanian firearms law is essential. The final decision must be based on objective evidence and a clear application of the law, ensuring both fairness to the applicant and the safety of the public. Question 7. Examination of the data shows a potential buyer in Vilnius wishes to purchase a hunting rifle. The buyer presents a document they claim is their permit to keep and carry a weapon. What is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action for the firearms dealer in Lithuania? Option A. Accept the buyer's verbal assurance that they possess a valid permit to keep and carry a weapon and proceed with the sale, as the buyer appears trustworthy. Option B. Proceed with the sale of the hunting rifle, assuming that a permit to keep a weapon automatically covers the right to carry it, without verifying specific carrying endorsements. Option C. Thoroughly examine the buyer's permit to keep and carry a weapon, confirming its validity, expiry date, and that it specifically authorizes the possession and intended use of the hunting rifle, and ensure all other required documentation under Lithuanian law is present and accurate before proceeding with the sale. Option D. Accept the buyer's permit, even if it is past its expiry date, as long as the buyer states they are in the process of renewing it. The correct answer is C. Thoroughly examine the buyer's permit to keep and carry a weapon, confirming its validity, expiry date, and that it specifically authorizes the possession and intended use of the hunting rifle, and ensure all other required documentation under Lithuanian law is present and accurate before proceeding with the sale. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a firearms dealer in Lithuania concerning the transfer of a firearm. The core difficulty lies in navigating the specific requirements of Lithuanian law regarding the permit to keep and carry a weapon, ensuring compliance with all necessary documentation and verification steps before completing the transaction. Failure to do so can result in legal penalties and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves meticulously verifying the validity and scope of the buyer's permit to keep and carry a weapon, cross-referencing it with the specific firearm being purchased, and ensuring all required documentation is present and accurate according to the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition. This approach prioritizes legal compliance and responsible arms dealing by confirming the buyer's legal entitlement to possess the specific weapon. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the sale based solely on the buyer's verbal assurance of possessing a valid permit, without any physical verification or documentation check. This directly violates the legal requirement for documented proof of entitlement and exposes the dealer to significant legal risk under Lithuanian law. Another incorrect approach is to accept an expired permit as sufficient grounds for the sale. Lithuanian law clearly stipulates that permits must be current and valid at the time of transfer. Accepting an expired permit constitutes a failure to adhere to the statutory requirements for weapon acquisition. A further incorrect approach is to assume that a permit to keep a firearm automatically covers the permit to carry it, and therefore not to verify the specific endorsement for carrying. Lithuanian legislation differentiates between permits for keeping and permits for carrying, and the dealer must ensure the buyer's permit specifically authorizes the intended use of the weapon. Professional reasoning. Professionals in Lithuania dealing with firearms must adopt a systematic due diligence process. This involves understanding the nuances of the law on weapons and ammunition, maintaining up-to-date knowledge of its provisions, and implementing robust internal procedures for verifying buyer eligibility and documentation. When in doubt, seeking clarification from the relevant Lithuanian authorities is a crucial step in responsible professional conduct. Question 8. Upon reviewing the requirements for obtaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania, what is the most prudent course of action for an applicant seeking to demonstrate their eligibility and compliance with Lithuanian law? Option A. Attempt to circumvent or misrepresent information to expedite the process. Option B. Rely on general assumptions about firearm permits without consulting the specific provisions of Lithuanian law. Option C. Submit an incomplete application with only basic personal identification and a vague statement of intent. Option D. Meticulously gather and submit all documentation explicitly required by the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, along with a clear and legally sound justification for the need to possess and carry a weapon. The correct answer is D. Meticulously gather and submit all documentation explicitly required by the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, along with a clear and legally sound justification for the need to possess and carry a weapon. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to navigate the specific requirements of Lithuanian law regarding the possession and carrying of firearms, balancing personal intent with legal obligations. Misinterpreting or failing to adhere to these regulations can lead to severe legal consequences, including denial of the permit, fines, or even criminal charges. The challenge lies in accurately identifying and presenting the necessary documentation and justifications that align with the Lithuanian legal framework for obtaining such a permit. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves meticulously gathering and submitting all documentation explicitly required by the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, along with a clear and legally sound justification for the need to possess and carry a weapon. This includes providing evidence of a clean criminal record, proof of completed firearms training and safety courses recognized in Lithuania, and a well-articulated reason for the permit application that aligns with the grounds permitted by Lithuanian law, e.g., self-defense, sport shooting, hunting, professional duties. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the statutory requirements and demonstrates the applicant's commitment to legal compliance and responsible firearm ownership as mandated by Lithuanian legislation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to submit an incomplete application with only basic personal identification and a vague statement of intent. This fails to meet the specific evidentiary requirements outlined in the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, such as proof of training or a detailed justification for the permit. This approach is ethically and legally flawed as it shows a disregard for the established legal process and the thoroughness expected by the authorities. Another incorrect approach is to rely on general assumptions about firearm permits without consulting the specific provisions of Lithuanian law. This might involve submitting documentation that is standard in other jurisdictions but not recognized or sufficient in Lithuania, or providing a justification that is not a valid ground for permit issuance under Lithuanian regulations. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to understand the unique legal landscape of Lithuania, leading to an almost certain denial of the permit. A further incorrect approach is to attempt to circumvent or misrepresent information to expedite the process. This could involve falsifying training certificates or providing misleading reasons for needing the permit. Such actions are not only ethically reprehensible, but also constitute serious legal violations under Lithuanian law, carrying severe penalties and permanently barring the applicant from obtaining a firearms permit. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should adopt a systematic approach. First, they must identify the specific governing legislation, which in this case is the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control. Second, they should thoroughly research and understand all stipulated requirements for the permit, including documentation, training, and permissible justifications. Third, they must meticulously prepare and submit all required materials, ensuring accuracy and completeness. Finally, they should be prepared to provide further clarification or documentation if requested by the issuing authorities, always acting within the bounds of the law and ethical conduct. Question 9. When evaluating a permit to keep and carry a weapon application in Lithuania, a firearms dealer receives information that the applicant has been involved in several documented domestic disputes, though no criminal charges were filed. What is the most responsible course of action for the dealer to ensure compliance with Lithuanian firearms regulations? Option A. Inform the applicant that domestic disputes are a disqualifying factor and immediately reject the application without further investigation. Option B. Conduct a thorough investigation by contacting relevant authorities, such as the police, to ascertain the nature and outcome of the domestic disputes and any associated restraining orders, and only proceed if official records confirm no disqualifying factors exist. Option C. Expedite the permit process to meet business objectives, assuming that the absence of criminal charges means the applicant is suitable. Option D. Accept the applicant's assurance that the disputes were minor and did not result in criminal charges, and proceed with the permit application as no formal conviction is present. Correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough investigation by contacting relevant authorities, such as the police, to ascertain the nature and outcome of the domestic disputes and any associated restraining orders, and only proceed if official records confirm no disqualifying factors exist. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a firearms dealer in Lithuania who has received a request for a permit to keep and carry a weapon from an individual with a history of domestic disputes. The challenge lies in balancing the business's need to process applications with the paramount responsibility to ensure public safety and adhere strictly to Lithuanian firearms legislation. Failure to conduct thorough due diligence or to properly assess the applicant's suitability could lead to serious legal repercussions for the dealer and, more importantly, endanger the public. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves meticulously verifying all information provided by the applicant and cross-referencing it with official records, particularly concerning any history of domestic violence or other disqualifying factors as outlined in the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania. This includes proactively contacting relevant authorities, such as the police, to inquire about any reported incidents or restraining orders associated with the applicant. The law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, specifically Article 11, outlines grounds for refusal of a permit, including instances where an individual poses a threat to public order or safety, which would encompass documented domestic disputes. A thorough investigation demonstrates adherence to the spirit and letter of the law, prioritizing safety over expediency. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves accepting the applicant's self-declaration of no criminal record or disputes at face value without independent verification. This fails to meet the due diligence requirements mandated by Lithuanian law, which places the onus on the permit issuer to ensure the applicant is not a risk. Such an approach could be interpreted as negligence and a violation of the dealer's responsibility to uphold public safety. Another incorrect approach is to proceed with the permit application solely based on the absence of a formal criminal conviction, overlooking documented instances of domestic disputes or restraining orders that may not have resulted in a conviction, but are still relevant to an individual's suitability to possess a firearm. Lithuanian law considers various factors beyond criminal convictions when assessing permit eligibility, and ignoring such information is a significant regulatory failure. A further incorrect approach is to expedite the permit process to meet business targets, even when red flags, such as the reported domestic disputes, are present. This prioritizes commercial interests over legal obligations and public safety, directly contravening the core principles of responsible firearms licensing and the intent of the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based approach, treating every application with a degree of skepticism and conducting thorough, independent verification. The decision-making process should be guided by a clear understanding of the relevant Lithuanian legislation, focusing on the applicant's suitability and potential risk to public safety. When in doubt, consulting with legal counsel or relevant authorities is advisable. The primary objective is to prevent firearms from falling into the hands of individuals who may misuse them, thereby safeguarding the community. Question 10. The analysis reveals that an applicant in Lithuania is seeking a permit to keep and carry a pistol. The law on state fees of the Republic of Lithuania specifies a base administrative fee of 30 euro for processing permit applications and an additional fee of 15 euro for permits related to pistols. If the applicant submits an application with a payment of only 30 euro, what is the total amount that should have been paid according to Lithuanian regulations? Option A, 60 euro. Option B, 30 euro. Option C, 45 euro. Option D, 15 euro. The correct answer is C, 45 euro. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario professionally challenging due to the need to accurately calculate and apply fees for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania, a process governed by specific administrative regulations. Miscalculation can lead to financial penalties, delays in permit issuance, or even rejection of the application, impacting the applicant's rights and the efficiency of the issuing authority. Careful judgment is required to ensure compliance with the established fee structure. The best professional practice involves a precise calculation of the state fee based on the applicant's declared firearm type and the applicable administrative fee for processing the permit application, as stipulated by Lithuanian law. This approach ensures full compliance with the law on state fees of the Republic of Lithuania and the regulations of the Ministry of the Interior. The calculation should be total fee equals base fee for permit application plus firearm-specific fee. For a pistol, the base fee is 30 euro and the firearm-specific fee is 15 euro. Therefore, the total fee is 30 euro plus 15 euro equals 45 euro. This method is correct because it directly applies the statutory fee schedule, preventing underpayment which would invalidate the application, and avoiding overpayment, which is an unnecessary financial burden on the applicant. An incorrect approach would be to only consider the base fee for the permit application, without accounting for the additional fee specific to the type of firearm. This would result in an underpayment of the required state fee, violating the law on state fees. Another incorrect approach would be to arbitrarily add a percentage to the base fee without a legal basis, leading to overpayment and non-compliance with the established fee structure. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the applicant's estimation of the fee without verification against the official schedule is also incorrect, as it delegates the responsibility for accurate fee calculation to the applicant, potentially leading to errors and non-compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to the specific legal and regulatory framework governing state fees. This involves consulting the most current version of the law on state fees and relevant ministerial regulations, cross-referencing the applicant's firearm type with the fee schedule, and performing a clear, documented calculation. In cases of ambiguity, seeking clarification from the issuing authority or legal counsel is paramount to ensure accurate and compliant fee assessment. Question 11. Comparative studies suggest that in Lithuania, the process of legally acquiring a hunting rifle requires strict adherence to specific documentation. A potential buyer presents a permit to keep and carry a weapon that has recently expired. What is the most professionally responsible and legally compliant course of action for a licensed firearms dealer in Lithuania? Option A. Proceed with the sale, accepting the buyer's assurance that they will renew their permit shortly. Option B. Refuse the sale until the buyer provides a newly issued, valid permit to keep and carry a weapon. Option C. Accept the expired permit and proceed with the sale, as the buyer is a known member of a local hunting club. Option D. Contact the buyer's hunting club to confirm their eligibility to purchase the rifle. Correct answer is B. Refuse the sale until the buyer provides a newly issued, valid permit to keep and carry a weapon. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a firearms dealer in Lithuania concerning the transfer of a hunting rifle. The The challenge lies in navigating the specific requirements of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, particularly regarding the validity of documentation presented by the buyer. Misinterpreting or overlooking these requirements can lead to severe legal repercussions, including fines and the revocation of the dealer's permit, as well as facilitating the illegal acquisition of firearms. Careful judgment is required to ensure full compliance with the law and to uphold ethical responsibilities in the arms trade. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves meticulously verifying the validity and completeness of the buyer's permit to keep and carry a weapon, as issued by the competent Lithuanian authorities. This includes checking the expiry date, ensuring it corresponds to the type of weapon being purchased, a hunting rifle in this case, and confirming that the permit is not suspended or revoked. The law on weapons and ammunition control mandates that a permit must be valid at the time of acquisition. Therefore, accepting a permit that has expired or is otherwise invalid would be a direct contravention of the law. This approach ensures that the dealer acts within the legal framework, preventing the transfer of a weapon to an individual who may not be legally authorized to possess it at that moment. Incorrect approaches analysis. Accepting the expired permit and proceeding with the sale is a direct violation of the law on weapons and ammunition control. The law requires a valid permit for the acquisition of firearms, and an expired permit signifies that the buyer's authorization has lapsed. This action exposes the dealer to legal penalties and undermines the regulatory system designed to control firearms. Proceeding with the sale based on the buyer's assurance that they will renew the permit soon is also professionally unacceptable. This approach relies on a verbal promise rather than legal documentation, disregarding the explicit legal requirement for a valid permit at the point of sale. It introduces a significant risk of facilitating an illegal transfer and demonstrates a lack of due diligence. Contacting the buyer's hunting club for confirmation instead of verifying the permit with the issuing authority is another flawed approach. While a hunting club might have some information, they are not the designated authority for issuing or verifying weapon permits. The law on weapons and ammunition control clearly designates specific state institutions for these functions. Relying on an unofficial source bypasses the legally mandated verification process and is therefore non-compliant. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a proactive and diligent approach to compliance. The decision-making process should prioritize adherence to the letter and spirit of the law on weapons and ammunition control. This involves 1. Understanding the specific documentation requirements for each type of firearm transaction. 2. Implementing robust internal procedures for verifying the authenticity and validity of all presented documents. 3. Recognizing the limitations of informal confirmations and always deferring to official channels for verification. 4. Prioritizing legal compliance and ethical responsibility over potential sales or customer convenience. 5. Seeking clarification from the relevant Lithuanian authorities if there is any ambiguity regarding permit validity or transfer procedures. Question 12. The investigation demonstrates that a Lithuanian citizen who holds a valid permit to keep and carry a weapon has recently moved to a new residential address within the Vilnius region, but has not yet formally notified the issuing authorities of this change. Considering the legal framework for weapon permits in Lithuania, what is the most appropriate course of action for this individual? Option A. Inform a local police officer verbally about the new address during a routine patrol, believing this informal communication will suffice for record keeping. Option B. Assume that since the move is within the same region and the permit is still physically in possession, formal notification is not immediately required and can be addressed during the next permit renewal. Option C. Immediately contact the relevant Lithuanian police or licensing authority to formally report the change of address and update their permit information. Option D. Wait for the authorities to contact them for a routine check or renewal before providing the updated address information. The correct answer is C. Immediately contact the relevant Lithuanian police or licensing authority to formally report the change of address and update their permit information. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a situation where a permit holder for keeping and carrying a weapon in Lithuania has failed to report a change in their residential address. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the strict legal obligations of permit holders with the practical realities of life changes. The core issue revolves around the legal requirement to maintain accurate information with the issuing authorities, which is crucial for public safety and the effective administration of weapon licensing. Failure to do so, even if unintentional, can have serious consequences. The correct approach involves proactively informing the relevant Lithuanian authorities, specifically the police or the designated licensing body, about the change of address as soon as reasonably practicable after the move. This demonstrates adherence to the legal framework governing weapon permits in Lithuania, which mandates reporting such changes. By doing so, the permit holder fulfills their statutory duty, ensuring their permit remains valid and that authorities have up-to-date information for any necessary checks or communications. This proactive measure is ethically sound as it prioritizes transparency and compliance with the law, contributing to the overall safety and regulatory integrity of the weapon licensing system. An incorrect approach would be to assume that the change of address is a minor administrative detail that does not require formal notification, especially if the move is within the same municipality, or if the individual believes their previous address is still being monitored. This fails to recognize that the permit is tied to specific information held by the authorities, and any deviation from that information, regardless of perceived impact, constitutes a breach of the permit's conditions. This approach risks invalidating the permit and potentially leading to legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to wait for a renewal period or an official inquiry from the authorities before reporting the address change. This demonstrates a reactive rather than proactive stance and ignores the ongoing obligation to keep information current. The law typically requires reporting changes within a specified timeframe, and delaying notification until prompted by the authorities is a failure to meet this obligation. This can be interpreted as an attempt to circumvent reporting requirements, even if that was not the intention. A further incorrect approach would be to rely on informal notification, such as informing a local police officer verbally or through a social media message, without following the official procedure for updating the permit details. While well-intentioned, informal channels do not constitute a legally recognized method of updating official records. The authorities require formal documentation and process to ensure the accuracy and integrity of their databases. This approach risks the information not being officially recorded, leaving the permit holder in a state of noncompliance. Professionals in this situation should adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes understanding and adhering to the specific legal requirements of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control. This involves consulting the official documentation or seeking clarification from the issuing authority regarding the precise procedures and timelines for reporting address changes. The guiding principle should be to act with diligence and transparency, ensuring all legal obligations are met promptly and accurately to maintain the validity of the permit and uphold public safety. Question 13. Analysis of a situation in Lithuania where a licensed firearms dealer is processing a request for a firearm purchase from a client who recently received a conviction for a minor traffic violation. Considering the law on the circulation of civil weapons of the Republic of Lithuania, what is the most appropriate course of action for the dealer? Option A. Sell the firearm but discreetly advise the client to omit the conviction when interacting with law enforcement or licensing bodies. Option B. Proceed with the sale, assuming the minor traffic violation is not a significant enough offense to warrant refusal under Lithuanian law. Option C. Immediately refuse the sale without further investigation, based on the mere fact of a recent conviction. Option D. Verify the client's eligibility against the disqualifying criteria outlined in Article 10 of the law on the circulation of civil weapons, and report any relevant circumstances to the authorities as per Article 15 if the conviction is deemed disqualifying. Correct answer is D. Verify the client's eligibility against the disqualifying criteria outlined in Article 10 of the law on the circulation of civil weapons, and report any relevant circumstances to the authorities as per Article 15 if the conviction is deemed disqualifying. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a firearms dealer in Lithuania when a client, who has recently been convicted of a minor offense, attempts to purchase a firearm. The challenge lies in balancing the client's right to engage in commerce with the stringent public safety obligations imposed by Lithuanian law concerning the possession and carrying of weapons. A thorough understanding of the law on the circulation of civil weapons of the Republic of Lithuania is paramount to avoid legal repercussions and uphold ethical standards. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a cautious and legally compliant approach. This means verifying the client's eligibility by cross-referencing the purchase with the requirements stipulated in the law on the circulation of civil weapons of the Republic of Lithuania, specifically Article 10, which outlines grounds for refusal of a permit. If the conviction, even if minor, falls under the disqualifying criteria as defined by the law, e.g., related to public order, violence, or habitual disregard for laws, the dealer must refuse the sale and report the situation to the relevant authorities as required by Article 15 of the same law. This approach prioritizes public safety and adherence to legal mandates, preventing potentially dangerous individuals from acquiring firearms. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to proceed with the sale without further investigation, assuming the offense was minor and therefore not disqualifying. This fails to acknowledge the explicit provisions in Article 10 of the law on the circulation of civil weapons, which grants authorities the discretion to deny permits based on the nature of convictions, regardless of perceived severity by the dealer. This oversight could lead to the arming of an individual who poses a potential risk, violating the spirit and letter of the law. Another incorrect approach would be to sell the firearm, but advise the client to conceal the conviction from the authorities. This is a direct violation of Article 15 of the law on the circulation of civil weapons, which mandates reporting any circumstances that may lead to the refusal of a permit. Furthermore, it constitutes unethical behavior by actively assisting in circumventing legal requirements and potentially facilitating illegal firearm possession. A third incorrect approach would be to refuse the sale outright without consulting the client's records or understanding the specific disqualifying criteria under Lithuanian law. While caution is warranted, an arbitrary refusal without due diligence is unprofessional and could unfairly deny a legitimate purchase if the conviction is indeed not a disqualifying factor according to the law. The dealer has a responsibility to apply the law correctly, not to make assumptions. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a systematic decision-making process. First, they must be intimately familiar with the law on the circulation of civil weapons of the Republic of Lithuania and its specific articles pertaining to eligibility and grounds for refusal. Second, upon encountering a situation like this, they must conduct a thorough verification of the client's background against these legal requirements. Third, they must consult relevant legal guidance or authorities if there is any ambiguity regarding the disqualifying nature of a conviction. Finally, they must act in accordance with the law, prioritizing public safety and legal compliance above all else. Question 14. Consider a scenario where a firearms dealer in Lithuania is approached by a foreign national who wishes to purchase a hunting rifle. The foreign national presents a valid hunting license from their home country and states they intend to apply for a Lithuanian permit to keep and carry a weapon after the purchase. What is the most appropriate course of action for the firearms dealer to ensure compliance with Lithuanian law? Option A. Transfer the rifle to the foreign national without any verification of their permit status, trusting their good intentions. Option B. Accept the buyer's valid hunting license from their home country as sufficient documentation for the transfer of the rifle in Lithuania. Option C. Verify that the foreign national possesses a valid Lithuanian permit to keep and carry a weapon for the specific type of rifle being purchased before completing the sale. Option D. Proceed with the sale, accepting the buyer's assurance that they will obtain the necessary Lithuanian permit after the purchase. The correct answer is C. Verify that the foreign national possesses a valid Lithuanian permit to keep and carry a weapon for the specific type of rifle being purchased before completing the sale. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a firearms dealer in Lithuania concerning the transfer of a hunting rifle. The core difficulty lies in navigating the specific requirements of Lithuanian law for obtaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon, particularly when the intended recipient is a foreign national. Ensuring compliance with the law on weapons and ammunition control and related regulations is paramount to avoid legal repercussions and maintain professional integrity. The dealer must exercise careful judgment to verify the legality of the transfer and the recipient's eligibility. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves the firearms dealer meticulously verifying that the potential buyer, a foreign national, possesses a valid permit to keep and carry a weapon issued by the competent authorities of Lithuania. This approach directly aligns with Article 10 of the Law on Weapons and Ammunition Control of the Republic of Lithuania, which outlines the conditions for acquiring weapons, including the requirement for a permit. The dealer must also ensure that the specific type of weapon being transferred is permitted under the buyer's permit. This thorough due diligence protects both the dealer from liability and ensures that weapons are transferred only to legally authorized individuals. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to assume that a valid hunting license from the buyer's home country is sufficient for the transfer of a weapon in Lithuania. This fails to recognize that Lithuanian law dictates the specific permits required for weapon possession and carriage within its territory. A foreign hunting license does not automatically grant the right to own or carry a weapon in Lithuania, nor does it substitute for the Lithuanian permit. Another incorrect approach would be to proceed with the sale based solely on the buyer's assurance that they will obtain the necessary permit after the purchase. This is a significant regulatory failure. Lithuanian law requires the permit to be in place before the acquisition of the weapon. Relying on a future promise bypasses the legal framework designed to control weapon proliferation and poses a serious risk. A further incorrect approach would be to transfer the weapon without any verification of the buyer's permit status, assuming that the buyer is acting in good faith. This demonstrates a severe lack of due diligence and a disregard for the legal obligations of a firearms dealer. It exposes the dealer to potential criminal liability and contributes to the illegal circulation of weapons. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should adopt a proactive and compliance-driven decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the specific legal requirements of the jurisdiction, Lithuania, regarding weapon sales and permits, particularly for foreign nationals. 2. Implementing a robust verification process for all documentation presented by the buyer, ensuring it meets the standards set by the law on weapons and ammunition control. 3. Consulting relevant authorities or legal counsel if there is any ambiguity regarding the validity or applicability of permits or documentation. 4. Prioritizing legal compliance and public safety over the immediate prospect of a sale. Question 15. During the evaluation of an application for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania, submitted by an individual claiming the sole purpose is participation in organized sport shooting events, what is the most prudent course of action for the licensing authority to ensure compliance with the law on the control of weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania? Option A. Immediately approve the permit based on the applicant's written declaration of intent to participate in sport shooting, assuming their stated purpose is sufficient justification. Option B. Grant the permit solely based on the applicant's confirmed membership in a registered sport shooting club, without further investigation into their individual circumstances or proficiency. Option C. Deny the permit application outright due to the inherent risks associated with firearm ownership, regardless of the applicant's stated purpose or documentation. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of all submitted documentation, cross-reference it with the applicant's declared purpose and any relevant official records, and conduct a detailed interview to clarify any ambiguities and assess the applicant's understanding of safe weapon handling and responsible ownership. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of all submitted documentation, cross-reference it with the applicant's declared purpose and any relevant official records, and conduct a detailed interview to clarify any ambiguities and assess the applicant's understanding of safe weapon handling and responsible ownership. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the applicant's stated intent with the stringent requirements of Lithuanian law regarding the acquisition and possession of firearms. The core challenge lies in discerning whether the applicant's stated purpose for acquiring a firearm for sport shooting is genuine and aligns with the legal prerequisites for obtaining a permit, or if there are underlying factors that might disqualify them under the law on the control of weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania. A thorough and objective assessment is crucial to uphold public safety and ensure compliance with legal obligations. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves a comprehensive review of all submitted documentation, cross-referencing it with the applicant's declared purpose and any available official records, and conducting a thorough interview to clarify any ambiguities. This approach directly addresses the requirements of the law on the control of weapons and ammunition, which mandates verification of the applicant's eligibility, including their stated purpose for possessing a weapon and their suitability. Specifically, Article 10 of the law outlines the grounds for refusal, which include cases where the applicant's stated purpose is not sufficiently justified, or if there are doubts about their reliability. A detailed interview allows for the assessment of the applicant's understanding of safe weapon handling and their commitment to responsible ownership, which are implicit requirements for permit issuance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves solely relying on the applicant's written declaration without further verification or interview. This fails to meet the due diligence expected under Lithuanian law, as it does not actively seek to confirm the legitimacy of the stated purpose or assess the applicant's overall suitability beyond their written submission. The law implies a proactive duty to investigate, not merely accept declarations at face value. Another incorrect approach is to immediately deny the permit based on a single, unsubstantiated concern or a minor discrepancy in the paperwork, without providing the applicant an opportunity to clarify or rectify the issue. This can be seen as an arbitrary decision and may not align with the principles of fairness and due process, which are generally expected in administrative proceedings, even if not explicitly detailed in every article of the weapons law. The law often allows for clarification and correction of minor errors. A third incorrect approach is to approve the permit solely based on the applicant's membership in a sports shooting club, without independently verifying the club's legitimacy or the applicant's actual participation and proficiency in the sport. While club membership is a relevant factor, it is not a sole determinant of eligibility. The law requires a broader assessment of the applicant's circumstances and intent. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a systematic and evidence-based approach. This involves understanding the specific legal requirements of the law on the control of weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, including grounds for issuance and refusal. The process should be objective, fair, and thorough, prioritizing public safety while respecting the rights of applicants. Key decision-making steps include meticulously reviewing all submitted documents, conducting interviews to assess intent and understanding, cross-referencing information with official databases where permissible, and documenting all findings and decisions clearly. When in doubt, seeking clarification from the applicant or consulting with legal experts within the relevant authority is paramount. Question 16. Research into the procedures for obtaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania has brought to light a situation where Ginklai LT, a licensed firearms dealer, has received an application from Mr. Jonas Petraitis for a hunting rifle. Mr. Petraitis has declared no criminal convictions on his application. However, Ginklai LT's internal review has uncovered a local newspaper report detailing a Mr. Jonas Petraitis receiving a conditional discharge for disturbing public order approximately 2 years ago. Considering the legal framework governing firearms in Lithuania, what is the most appropriate and legally compliant course of action for Ginklai LT? Option A. Discreetly seek official confirmation from the relevant Lithuanian law enforcement agency regarding any record of Mr. Petraitis and the nature of the incident mentioned in the newspaper report to inform the due diligence process. Option B. Proceed with the permit application without further investigation, assuming the newspaper report is inaccurate or irrelevant to his eligibility for a firearms permit. Option C. Immediately reject Mr. Petraitis' application based on the information in the newspaper report, as it suggests a potential issue with his repute. Option D. Confront Mr. Petraitis directly with the newspaper clipping and demand a full explanation before proceeding with any further action. The correct answer is A. Discreetly seek official confirmation from the relevant Lithuanian law enforcement agency regarding any record of Mr. Petraitis and the nature of the incident mentioned in the newspaper report to inform the due diligence process. Explanation. Research into the process of obtaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania reveals a scenario that is professionally challenging due to the sensitive nature of firearms and the stringent legal requirements designed to ensure public safety. A firearms dealer, Ginklai LT, has received an application from a client, Mr. Jonas Petraitis, who wishes to acquire a hunting rifle. Mr. Petraitis has provided all standard documentation, including proof of identity and a medical certificate. However, The application form also includes a section asking about any past criminal convictions, to which Mr. Petraitis has responded, none. Jinklai LT's internal review process flags a discrepancy. A recent news report from a local Lithuanian newspaper mentioned a Mr. Jonas Petraitis being involved in a minor altercation that resulted in a conditional discharge for disturbing public order approximately 2 years ago. The challenge lies in determining the appropriate course of action without violating privacy laws or failing in the duty to conduct due diligence as mandated by Lithuanian firearms regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough, discreet, and legally compliant investigation into the reported incident. This means Jinklai LT should, in accordance with the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania and relevant personal data protection regulations, attempt to verify the information discreetly. This could involve contacting the relevant law enforcement agency in Lithuania for official confirmation of any record pertaining to Mr. Petraitis and the nature of the incident, without disclosing the purpose of the inquiry beyond standard due diligence for a firearms permit. The law requires applicants to be of good repute, and a conditional discharge, even for a minor offense, could potentially impact this assessment. Key is to obtain official, verifiable information to make an informed decision, respecting Mr. Petraitis' privacy while upholding public safety obligations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the application based solely on the newspaper report without any official verification. This would be premature and potentially discriminatory, as newspaper reports are not always accurate or complete, and a conditional discharge might not, under Lithuanian law, automatically disqualify an individual from obtaining a firearms permit. Another incorrect approach would be to confront Mr. Petraitis directly with the newspaper clipping and demand an explanation. While transparency is important, this method could be perceived as accusatory and may not yield accurate information if Mr. Petraitis chooses to be evasive. Furthermore, it could create an adversarial relationship and potentially lead to legal challenges regarding the handling of personal information. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the discrepancy altogether and proceed with the permit application. This would constitute a failure in due diligence, potentially exposing Jinklai LT and the public to risk if Mr. Petraitis is indeed unsuitable to possess a firearm. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes legal compliance, ethical conduct, and public safety. This involves 1. Identifying the legal and regulatory obligations, e.g., law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, personal data protection laws. 2. Assessing the potential risks associated with the discrepancy. 3. Developing a plan for discreet and lawful information gathering. 4. Making a decision based on verified facts and legal criteria. 5. Documenting all steps taken and the rationale for the final decision. Question 17. The audit findings indicate that a firearm, legally permitted to be kept and carried in Lithuania, was discovered unsecured in a private residence, not within an approved safe or designated secure location as required by Lithuanian law. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the permit holder? Option A. Delay reporting the incident to the authorities while searching for a suitable safe storage solution. Option B. Immediately secure the firearm in an approved safe storage facility and then formally report the incident to the Lithuanian police. Option C. Attempt to dispose of the firearm discreetly to avoid any official record of the improper storage. Option D. Relocate the firearm to a different, more discreet, but still unsecured location within the residence. The correct answer is B. Immediately secure the firearm in an approved safe storage facility and then formally report the incident to the Lithuanian police. Explanation. The scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential for a serious breach of Lithuanian weapons legislation, specifically concerning the lawful possession and storage of firearms. The core issue is ensuring compliance with the law on the control of weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, which mandates strict procedures for the storage of firearms to prevent unauthorized access and potential misuse. The auditor's discovery necessitates immediate and decisive action to rectify the situation and prevent further noncompliance. The correct approach involves immediately securing the firearm in an approved safe storage facility and then formally reporting the incident to the relevant Lithuanian authorities, specifically the police. This aligns with the spirit and letter of the law on the control of weapons and ammunition, which emphasizes responsible ownership and secure storage. By promptly securing the weapon and notifying the authorities, the individual demonstrates a commitment to legal compliance and public safety. This proactive measure mitigates further risk and ensures that the authorities are aware of the situation and can guide the subsequent steps, which may include formalizing the storage arrangements or other necessary actions as per Lithuanian law. An incorrect approach would be to simply move the firearm to a different, unapproved location within the residence without informing the authorities. This fails to address the fundamental issue of inadequate storage and could still pose a security risk. Furthermore, it bypasses the legal requirement to report such matters, potentially leading to penalties under Lithuanian law. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to conceal the fact that the firearm was not stored correctly, perhaps by disposing of it without proper authorization. This constitutes a deliberate attempt to evade legal responsibility and could result in severe legal consequences, including criminal charges and a complete loss of the permit to keep and carry a weapon. Finally, an approach that involves delaying notification to the authorities while attempting to find a suitable safe is also problematic. While the intention might be to rectify the situation, the delay itself represents a period of non-compliance with the spirit of secure storage and the implicit duty to report significant deviations from lawful practice. Professionals facing such situations should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes immediate risk mitigation, adherence to legal mandates, and transparent communication with regulatory bodies. This involves first assessing the immediate safety implications, then identifying the specific legal requirements of the jurisdiction, in this case, Lithuania, and finally choosing the course of action that most effectively and promptly brings the situation into full compliance while minimizing potential harm. Question 18. The audit findings indicate that a client in Vilnius, Lithuania, who holds a permit to keep and carry a firearm, has submitted their renewal application only 2 weeks before their current permit's expiry date. The client states they believe this was sufficient time. Based on the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control, what is the most prudent course of action to ensure continued legal compliance? Option A. Advise the client to submit a request for an expedited review of their application due to the short notice, assuming this is a recognized procedure. Option B. Advise the client to immediately ensure all supporting documents, including updated medical and psychological evaluations and a certificate of no criminal record, are complete and submitted to the issuing authority without delay, while acknowledging the inherent risk of administrative delays. Option C. Inform the client that their permit will remain valid while the renewal application is being processed, even if it expires before a decision is made. Option D. Recommend the client cease all possession and carrying of the firearm until the renewal is officially granted, as the current permit will expire soon. The correct answer is B. Advise the client to immediately ensure all supporting documents, including updated medical and psychological evaluations, and a certificate of no criminal record, are complete and submitted to the issuing authority without delay, while acknowledging the inherent risk of administrative delays. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential lapse in adherence to the procedures for permit renewal for firearms in Lithuania. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a precise understanding of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control and its associated regulations, specifically concerning the timely submission of documentation for permit renewals. Failure to comply can lead to significant legal repercussions, including the revocation of permits and potential criminal charges. The correct approach involves proactively initiating the permit renewal process well in advance of the expiry date, ensuring all required documentation, including updated medical certificates and proof of no criminal record, is gathered and submitted according to the stipulated timelines in the law on weapons and ammunition control. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of administrative delays or oversights that could lead to a lapse in the permit's validity. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the spirit and letter of the law, which mandates continuous compliance for lawful weapon possession. The law implicitly requires that permit remain valid at all times for legal ownership and carrying, and proactive renewal is the only way to guarantee this. An incorrect approach involves waiting until the permit is close to expiry or has already expired before initiating the renewal process. This demonstrates a disregard for the procedural requirements and the legal obligation to maintain a valid permit. Such a delay could result in the permit lapsing, making the possession or carrying of a weapon illegal under Lithuanian law, and potentially incurring penalties. Another incorrect approach is to assume that a renewal application automatically extends the validity of an expired permit. The law on weapons and ammunition control does not provide for automatic extensions based solely on the submission of a renewal application. The permit's validity is strictly tied to its expiry date and the successful completion of the renewal process within the prescribed timeframe. A further incorrect approach is to submit incomplete documentation for the renewal. The authorities are legally empowered to reject incomplete applications, which would further delay the renewal process and could lead to the permit expiring before it is reissued, thereby violating the law. Professionals should adopt a systematic approach to permit management. This involves maintaining a clear record of all permit expiry dates, establishing internal reminders for renewal well in advance, and familiarizing themselves with the most current requirements of the Lithuanian law on weapons and ammunition control and any relevant administrative guidelines. When in doubt, seeking clarification from the issuing authorities is paramount to ensure full compliance. Question 19. The audit findings indicate that a Lithuanian resident who holds a valid permit to keep and carry a firearm has recently discovered that their permit expired 3 weeks ago. They had intended to renew it but became preoccupied with personal matters and missed the renewal deadline. They are now concerned about the legality of possessing their firearm and are seeking advice on the best course of action to rectify the situation and ensure continued lawful ownership and carriage. Option A. Purchase a new firearm permit, treating the expired permit as null and void, and starting the application process from scratch as if they were a new applicant. Option B. Immediately submit a complete permit renewal application, along with all supporting documentation to the relevant Lithuanian authorities, acknowledging the oversight and requesting expedited processing. Option C. Contact the issuing authority to explain the situation and request a grace period to complete the renewal process, assuming the permit remains valid for a short period post-expiry. Option D. Continue to keep and carry the firearm while attempting to gather the necessary documents for renewal, believing that the intention to renew will be sufficient until the process is completed. The correct answer is B. Immediately submit a complete permit renewal application along with all supporting documentation to the relevant Lithuanian authorities, acknowledging the oversight and requesting expedited processing. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential lapse in adherence to the procedures for maintaining a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a precise understanding of the Lithuanian legal framework governing firearms, specifically the requirements for permit renewal and the implications of failing to meet these requirements within the stipulated timeframe. The challenge lies in balancing the applicant's desire to retain their firearm with the strict legal obligations and public safety considerations inherent in firearms regulation. The correct approach involves proactively initiating the permit renewal process well in advance of the expiry date, ensuring all required documentation and checks are completed according to the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania. This proactive stance demonstrates due diligence and respect for the legal process, minimizing the risk of an inadvertent lapse. By submitting the application and supporting documents within the legally prescribed period, the applicant ensures continuous lawful possession and carriage of the weapon, thereby avoiding any breach of the law. This aligns with the principle of responsible firearm ownership and compliance with state regulations designed to ensure public safety. An incorrect approach would be to assume that a permit remains valid for a grace period after its expiry date, or to believe that a verbal confirmation from an official constitutes a formal renewal. Such assumptions are not supported by the law on weapons and ammunition of the Republic of Lithuania, which mandates specific procedures and timelines for permit renewal. Failing to submit a formal application and undergo the required checks before the expiry date constitutes a violation of the law, potentially leading to penalties, confiscation of the weapon, and a ban on future firearm ownership. Another incorrect approach would be to delay the renewal process until after the permit has expired, hoping to rectify the situation retroactively. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of the legal requirements and a disregard for the strictness of firearms legislation, which prioritizes preventing unauthorized possession of weapons. Professionals dealing with such situations should adopt a systematic decision-making process. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the specific legal requirements of the relevant jurisdiction, Lithuania in this case, including timelines and documentation for permit renewal. 2. Prioritizing proactive compliance by initiating processes well in advance of deadlines. 3. Seeking clarification from official sources, e.g., the issuing authority, if there is any ambiguity regarding procedures or timelines. 4. Documenting all communications and actions taken related to the permit. 5. Recognizing that legal obligations are absolute and cannot be circumvented by informal understandings or assumptions. Question 20. Compliance review shows that an applicant in Lithuania has submitted an application to keep and carry a firearm. The applicable regulations stipulate a base administrative fee of Euros 50 for processing the permit application and an additional fee of Euros 15 for each firearm listed on the permit. If the applicant lists 3 firearms on their application, what is the correct total fee that should be charged? Option A, Euros 50. Option B, Euros 75. Option C, Euros 95. Option D, Euros 150. The correct answer is C, Euros 95. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge involving the accurate calculation of fees for a permit to keep and carry a weapon in Lithuania. Miscalculating these fees can lead to financial penalties for the applicant, administrative delays, and potential reputational damage for the issuing authority. Precise adherence to the established fee structure, which often involves a base fee and a per item charge, is critical for maintaining compliance with Lithuanian administrative law and ensuring fair and consistent application of regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves calculating the total permit fee by summing the base administrative fee with the product of the number of firearms and the per firearm fee. This method directly reflects the fee structure outlined in Lithuanian regulations for weapon permits, which typically distinguishes between an initial application cost and an additional charge for each item being permitted. This ensures that the applicant is charged precisely according to the legal framework, avoiding undercharging, which could lead to financial loss for the state, or overcharging, which would be an unlawful imposition. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves only applying the base administrative fee and disregarding the per firearm charge. This fails to comply with the specific provisions of Lithuanian law that mandate additional fees based on the number of weapons. This would result in undercollection of state revenue and a violation of the established fee schedule. Another incorrect approach is to multiply the base administrative fee by the number of firearms. This misinterprets the fee structure, incorrectly applying a per item charge to the base fee rather than to the number of items. This would lead to an inflated and unlawful fee, exceeding the legally prescribed amount. A further incorrect approach is to apply only the per firearm fee without including the base administrative fee. This overlooks the initial application cost that is a standard component of administrative permits in Lithuania, resulting in an incomplete and non-compliant fee calculation that does not cover the full administrative burden. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a systematic approach to fee calculation. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the specific regulatory provisions governing permit fees, including any base fees, per item charges, and potential surcharges. 2. Identifying all relevant variables from the applicant's submission, e.g., number of firearms. 3. Applying the correct mathematical formula derived directly from the regulations. 4. Double-checking calculations to ensure accuracy. In cases of ambiguity, consulting the relevant legal texts or seeking clarification from supervisory bodies is paramount.